and welcome to The Drum. I'm Steve Cannane. Coming up, mental health on the agenda in the lead up to the budget, the secret tracking file that's logging all iPhone users, and we talk to Julian Assange's lawyer, Jennifer Robinson. Our panel tonight, psychiatrist and columnist Dr Tanveer Ahmed, former New South Wales Liberal leader Kerry Chikarovski, and actor and writer Rhys Muldoon. Well, questions are again being raised today about whether the federal government has lost control of immigration detention centres. What started out as a small rooftop protest turned into a night of rioting by around 100 detainees at Villawood in Sydney. At least 9 buildings were damaged or destroyed. Firefighters and police were attacked. Immigration Minister Rhys Muldoon says many of the rioters have had their asylum claims rejected and anyone involved could face criminal charges.
These are people, in many instances, who are not happy that they have not been accepted as refugees. If they think they will change their visa outcome, if they think they will be accepted as refugees because of this sort of protest action, they've chosen the wrong government and the wrong minister, because that won't be happening.
The government has announced the independent inquiry into the recent Christmas Island riots will be widened to include last night's violence. Shadow Immigration Minister Scott Morrison says that's not good enough.
Criminal acts were committed last night, and the Australian people expect this government to take action, not just further extend the terms of reference of yet another inquiry, which I suspect will fall on deaf ears.
Tanveer, has the government lost control of immigration detention centres?
Well, it appears that they have. I mean, we're seeing a real crescendo, if you like, from after the Christmas Island, and now Villawood. This is unprecedented, and I guess particularly close to home in terms of a metropolitan centre. So, in terms of the level of acting out amongst detainees, and obviously it's run by a private security firm, Circa, but you do get a sense that the nature of events in recent weeks in particular shows that the government policy is failing.
Kerry, what are your thoughts?
Well, obviously it's not working, but I think that's something that the Australian people and certainly the opposition have been saying now for some time. I think Rhys Muldoon's comment, well, you know, that these people, if they think that's going to improve their chances, is kind of absolutely obvious. You know, you're not going to be rioting on the roofs at Villawood and improve your chances of staying. But the real issue is, first of all, is the policy working, that they are there that long? And secondly, should they be there in the first instance? In the first instance, we know there is an alternative solution, which is offshore processing, and I think that's where we should be looking at it. Because the policy they've got at the moment is keeping people in detention too long with an expectation that they're going to stay. If you go into offshore processing, perhaps you dampen those expectations and people won't actually be involved in this sort of rioting behaviour.
But under offshore processing, people were still detained for a long time. People in Nauru were detained for up to 4 years.
Yeah, but I suspect that the difference is that they weren't actually in Australia thinking they should be out faster.
Rhys, has the government lost control of detention centres?
Well, I'm not sure that I even sort of like the question or the frame of reference in a lot of ways. I mean, I see a lot of this as grotesque theatre in a lot of ways, in that obviously people aren't talking about, it's been brought up many times, but of the people that overstay their visas and come on planes, which is an incredibly huge number. Of course, boats are very dramatic, and it's like, here's a boat on the horizon, and here are these, queue jumpers and all that sort of stuff. And then, people that are desperately seeking freedom are suddenly put in a cage. Trouble will ensue. It just will. I don't look.
But there's problems, isn't there, with how many people are in detention centres? And
absolutely.
They said today that the Department of Immigration said that Villawood wasn't overflowing like Christmas Island had been. But there's also the issue of how long people are in detention and how desperate they get.
Absolutely. Well, it's like, if you think of it, if you try and put yourself in that position, it is literally a Kafkaesque nightmare of going, I don't know how long I'm here for, I don't know what the charge is, I don't know when I'll ever possibly get out. Obviously, people have spoken about the mental health issues of that, so that people will start to harm themselves. If it's not themselves, it'll be their physical surroundings. It's not. It's an incredibly horrible and complex issue, and I just, I shake my head at it, but it's.
But if Rhys Muldoon is right, and these people are actually at the end of the process, why are they still in there? Why haven't they been deported?
I guess it's because there's mechanisms of appeal, and they could appeal to the last one is, I think you can appeal to the minister, and maybe that's where the stage that it's at.
And so maybe that's where it should speed up. I mean, if the minister's...
And also some people are stateless. There are some people who can't be sent back anywhere.
And in
so
fact,
they can be there indefinitely.
You referred to Nauru being up to 4 years. Usually the people that stayed for extensive periods were people that were rejected, but then the countries we wanted to send them back to wouldn't accept them.
Yeah,
so then they're stuck for indefinitely.
Tanveer, you wrote a piece in the Sydney Morning Herald today in which you said that John Howard's approach was more humane than the current approach. Why do you think that's the case?
Look, Rhys alluded to it, but just going back to the process of how someone would end up on a boat. there is ultimately a sales pitch at a point back home. There is a sales pitch either from, say, a migration agent or a smuggler to a portion that, yes, they're being persecuted, tortured, what have you, but there's certainly another portion where it's opportunist. It's a way to migrate, and I think it's naive to think otherwise. Now, I applaud people. I have great sympathy for people, and I see many refugees, etc. And I would love to give them a visa because I think that many of them would make great citizens. But the incentive, the policy should limit the incentive for that market. So as much as we demonise people smugglers or what have you, they're essentially entrepreneurs and they're filling a market gap. And there is a big incentive to come here when we process people